Every year, thousands of tourists from all around the world travel to beautiful Lapland in Finland for a true Christmas experience. Lapland is known for the stunning landscape with a lot of snow, visits to see Santa, igloo hotels, and husky rides through the freezing landscape. Since there are a lot of visitors during winter time, hundreds of seasonal workers also arrive to work during the Christmas season. Rebecca Johnson had dreamed about working in Lapland, and her dream finally came true in 2016 when she landed a job on the dog sled team. She traveled to Finland overjoyed in hopes of having the winter of her dreams. But little did Rebecca know that on the 3rd of December 2016, her dream would end in tragedy. This is the case of Rebecca Johnson. So hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Elin, and on this channel I cover true crime cases that have occurred in the Nordic countries. I hope that you all had a beautiful Christmas and also Happy New Year, everyone. I just love the new year since I love having a fresh start in life, and I'm super excited for what this year has to offer. This case was actually the first case that I ever filmed on this channel, but I took it down a while ago since I thought I would redo it with better quality. And since the case has a Christmas theme, I thought it would be the perfect time to do it around Christmas, even though I know that Christmas is already over. So I just wanted to say this in case someone has seen the case before I took it down and is wondering why I'm uploading the same case again. It is the same case, but hopefully a lot better. I also want to warn sensitive viewers, this video includes talk about domestic violence, so if that's something that's triggering to you, then click out of this video and hopefully I will see you in another case. With that being said, now let's get into the case that happened in Finland. Rebecca Johnson, or Becky, was a 26-year-old girl born in Burnisland, Scotland. She was a big animal lover who enjoyed being outdoors, especially with her dogs. Rebecca was described as open, positive, and caring towards others, and some people who knew her in her town described her as a princess, which I think says a lot about her. Rebecca's own family described her as a beautiful and lovely girl, and she was very close to her family, especially her parents, but also her older siblings. As I said, Rebecca liked dogs a lot, so she was into dog sled racing, and she was also doing dog training in the city that she lived in. Her racing hobby also gave her the idea to sell mushing equipment, which was kind of like her side business that was doing pretty well. This hobby and also her business made her well known and liked by the people in her town. In 2015, Rebecca met a man called Karel Frybl who was 10 years older than her. Karel, who was 36 years old, was a Czech-born former soldier who sometimes used the name Radek Kovac, and this was apparently because he wanted a new start in life. But I'm gonna be using the name Karel in this video since that was his original name and it's easier to just be using one name throughout the video. Karel moved to the UK in his 30s after serving in the Czech army in Afghanistan and Kosovo. In UK, he worked in a mountain sports retailer to earn some money, but apart from that he was a sportsman as he liked running and was competing in dog sledding. In 2015 he met Rebecca, as I said, and they really felt like their love was real, so they soon moved in together despite their 10-year age difference. They were both athletic, but also shared a love for animals, especially dogs, and their big dream was to move to the Arctic together with their dogs. Now, apart from Rebecca, Karel was not well liked in their hometown, especially by their neighbors. He was described as argumentative and had many unpleasant run-ins with people from their neighborhood. Becky's family had met Karel once, and they were also skeptical towards him as he seemed cold and indifferent in their eyes. They kind of felt like Becky deserved someone who was more like her, so bubbly, caring, and positive. But Rebecca seemed happy, and she was a grown woman who could make her own choices, so they kind of just let her be happy and decided to not do anything about the situation. At some point pretty soon after they met, the couple also traveled to Karel's home country, the Czech Republic, to meet his family. And I don't really have any information about this trip or how it went, but it tells that they were pretty serious about their relationship. Overall, Karel was described as short-tempered, and Becky's friends suspected that the relationship was toxic. And they were actually right, since Rebecca did tell her sister that even if she loved her boyfriend, he had been both mentally and physically abusive towards her. In a text to her sister, she wrote, and I quote, "He smacked me at the back of my head. He threw a plate and a table at me and slapped me across the face. I went down to push the bolt as far as possible so he cannot come back." Her sister, of course, told Rebecca to leave Karel, and she actually answered, and I quote, "This will escalate and he may end up killing you." Which is so chilling to hear considering what actually ended up happening in this case. But even if the relationship sometimes ended due to fights, Rebecca always ended up back with Karel, so it kinda seemed like this typical toxic relationship. In 2016, Rebecca and Karel landed jobs in the Husky Ranch in Lapland, which is located in the northern part of Finland. As I said, this was a dream come true for them, and Rebecca actually had dog sledding in Finland on her bucket list, so she had been talking about this for years. She was overjoyed at the chance to work with dogs and take visitors on a ride through the snow despite the very cold weather, which can actually be up to minus 40 degrees Celsius. Every year in Lapland, seasonal workers arrive to work during Christmas time until the end of January. So Rebecca and Karel moved together along with their dogs to the tiny village of Kuttanen in northern Finland, and this is a super small village that is normally home to only around 100 people. Rebecca and Karel were members of a Santa Safari team organizing Christmas Lapland excursions. And they were just perfect for their jobs. I mean, they were experienced dog sledders. It took some time for them to get there since they wanted to bring their own dogs with them and they needed to make sure that they complied with all the requirements to get passports. The arrival in Finland also did not start out perfectly as they had not been prepared for the cold weather and their van also broke down on the way to the ranch. They did, however, eventually arrive at their small cottage, and Rebecca was in contact with her family saying that everything in Lapland was as she had hoped. Most of their days, the couple just cared for their dogs and worked, and I mean, visiting Lapland is something that people from all over the world do. You can go to the Santa Claus village, husky rides, see reindeer, see the northern lights. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And on the couple's social media, it looked like they were having the time of their lives in Lapland. Becky actually posted a selfie of her and Karel where they were both in a silly pose and smiling from ear to ear, and the caption said, and I quote, "Now more than ever, cherish time with the ones you love. Love you, Radek Kovac." Another worker from the UK called Joseph Pickles had, however, seen that the couple had a rocky relationship as they were always fighting. Becky once corrected Karel's English and he reacted by breaking up with her on Facebook. She had also told Joseph that she wanted to leave Karel as he had pushed her down the stairs during an argument. On top of that, Rebecca had told her friends about an incident when she told Karel that he was driving the snowmobile slowly. He had laughed when she said this, but later at home he slapped her in the face because of it. After this, he had also removed and blocked her on Facebook, as well as changed his relationship status to single, which is just toxic and silly, to be honest. The friends just hoped that she would eventually end things with Karel, and I mean, there's nothing that they can do more than trying to support Rebecca as much as possible. On the 2nd of December 2016, a Friday night, Rebecca and Karel had a big fight. After the argument, Karel spent the night away from the cabin since Rebecca kicked him out. So he went to crash in Joseph's cabin for the night and he agreed that Karel could stay the night, but he didn't really want to get involved. He actually felt a bit uncomfortable around Karel since he knew that he had been aggressive towards Rebecca and he was probably a bit scared of him. The next morning, on the 3rd of December, Rebecca got ready for work, but she was a bit scared since she knew that she would have to face Karel. So Rebecca called her coworker back in England, who was called Caitlin Howard. Caitlin has stated that Rebecca sounded distressed and told her that she was stuck in a violent relationship. She also said that Karel had kicked her in the stomach the night before, and it was clear that she was very scared in this phone call. Rebecca had actually asked if their employer could have Karel kicked off of the Husky Ranch team, so it was clear that she was feeling uncomfortable being around him and maybe she had a feeling that something bad was gonna happen. Caitlin, of course, was concerned about Becky and she tried to calm her down, and they were still on the phone together when Karel returned to the cabin at around 7 a.m. After this, she just heard three piercing screams coming from Rebecca before the line went dead, and this was unfortunately the last time that Caitlin would ever speak to her friend. Caitlin has stated, and I quote, "There were screams, just screams, screams, screams. After that, the line went dead. She sounded like she was in trouble." Outside of the cabin, Husky sled guide Joseph Pickles also heard the screams. He was actually taking care of dogs outside when he heard screams coming from the couple's cabin. Joseph ran into the cabin and saw Karel standing above Rebecca, covered in blood with a knife in his hand. Rebecca was laying on the floor, bleeding heavily, and he just yelled at Karel to stop while Rebecca begged for her life. She said, "Joe, call an ambulance. He stabbed me." Joseph described Karel during the incident, and I quote, "He had blank, dead eyes. He was in a rage. At this point, I didn't make any eye contact because I didn't want to challenge him. His movements were erratic. He moved many times through several cabins. He tried to start the car, but it was too cold." Terrified, Joseph ran outside and called the emergency services. He reported the incident and told the operator how scared he was that Karel might turn on him too. He stated that he doesn't want to die because he did not know if this situation was safe for him either. But he still went back into the cabin to check on Rebecca and he found her lifeless. Her injuries now looked worse than before, and when he touched her, he realized that she was gone. Tragically, Rebecca didn't survive her injuries. She had at least 40 stab wounds, 10 in her chest, and 30 slashes on her head, back, abdomen, and thighs. There were defensive wounds on her hands, showing she desperately tried to protect herself during the attack. Her death had been caused by stab wounds that had punctured her heart and her lungs. Karel had taken a sled and their huskies and fled into the forest. As emergency services arrived, a huge manhunt was launched across the remote wilderness in the freezing temperatures of -35 degrees. Police were notified about the situation at 7:45 in the morning, and the police station was actually 150 kilometers away, so they had to send patrol officers that were closer by to the scene. Unfortunately, once they arrived, it was already too late and Rebecca had tragically passed away due to her injuries. So the police now chased Karel on snowmobiles, and they actually closed the border to Sweden as a helicopter circled in the air. During this time, of course, the day adventures were suspended, and some tourists got very upset that they did not get to go on their adventures. And this was a very dramatic situation for the locals as well, since things like this are rare not only in Finland but especially in this little village. After 4 hours at 2 p.m., Karel and his three dogs were found by a helicopter only a few kilometers away. He was suffering from hypothermia and he had 2 knife wounds to his stomach. One of the dogs actually attacked a police officer and they ended up shooting the dog, which is just so sad since they were all innocent in this and they were just trying to protect their owner. During this, Karel was screaming to the police that they should just kill him too. But instead, he was taken to the hospital for treatment and the police had to wait before they could interview him. The doctors told investigators that it seemed like the stab wounds were self-inflicted, so it was a pretty clear case at this point. Back in Scotland, Becky's close ones got the news that nobody wants to get before the Christmas holidays. Their daughter, sister, relative, grandchild, and friend had been murdered. So during interviews, Karel told the investigators that Rebecca had attacked him first and that's why he attacked her. He said that they had been arguing about their dogs since Rebecca said that she will take the dogs with her if they break up. He claimed that he had then blacked out and could not remember attacking her, and I will now read his version of events. "I told her the puppies are mine. She said on the phone I want him to be removed from the farm. I called her a stupid girl. When I turned, I felt this impact on my chest and sharp pain. I remember I fell to the ground. I don't remember whether we both fell. The next thing I remember, I was getting up. I had a knife in my hand. I don't know if somebody smacked me or if I was on drugs. I went next to Becky and I remember there was blood on her face. I said we need to get a bloody ambulance. Karel was, of course, arrested after this since his description of what happened just didn't seem likely. Investigators strongly believe that Rebecca never stabbed Karel. This was not only because the doctors were stating so, but also because there was no trail of blood in the snow and his shirts and jackets had no cuts. Investigators also started to look into Karel's background and they actually found 3 assault convictions under his name. As well as being violent towards Rebecca, it seemed like Karel had a history of attacking people. In 2013, he was charged for domestic violence after he hit a former partner in the face when she dumped him after only 3 weeks together. She said that she realized he was dangerous after only 3 weeks together, and that's why she tried to break things off. He also committed 2 other assaults after this one, but unfortunately, I have no more information on these. So Karel was charged with the murder of Rebecca Johnson. He actually admitted to killing Rebecca, but claimed that he was only guilty of manslaughter. Karel also stated that he suffered from PTSD from his military service, so this led to his temporary mental breakdown. The court actually sent him for assessment, and the psychological evaluation deemed him to be fully competent at the time of the crime, and he knew that his actions were wrong. So the trial took place in Finland in 2017. In court, the prosecution painted a picture of the couple's abusive relationship and how Karel was both mentally and physically abusive towards Becky. They also claimed that some of Rebecca's wounds had been inflicted when her back was turned. Either he first struck her from the back and she did not see it coming, or then she realized that he was about to attack her and tried to escape. Rebecca's friend Caitlin testified to being on the phone to Rebecca at the time that she was attacked and she sounded scared and upset. Caitlin also told the court that Rebecca had revealed she was in an abusive relationship and recounted that Karel had kicked her in the stomach the night before she was killed. Joseph testified to walking into a scene of horror. He told the court that he witnessed Karel with the knife and had yelled at him to stop before Rebecca had begged for an ambulance. He said, and I quote, "The injuries looked worse when I saw her the second time after making the call to the ambulance. There was a lot of blood. Her safari uniform was wet with blood." Karel also spoke in court himself, and he showed no emotion, and his testimony was strange and confusing. Rebecca's family had also flown in from the UK, and they were just sitting in court hearing about Rebecca's last moments, which is just heartbreaking. In February of 2018, the court found Karel Frybl, aka Radek Kovac, guilty of murder. He was sentenced to life in prison, and I have said it many times that this usually means around 12 years in Finland. The court said that Rebecca had been a victim of a very cruel, extremely violent, and cold-blooded act, and it was clear that the intent was to kill. In November of 2018, Karel's murder conviction was actually overturned at an appeal that was heard by 3 judges. The judges decided that he would instead spend 11 years in prison for homicide. And under Finnish law, this means that the attack was not seen as particularly cruel or premeditated. The judges said that Karel had continued to stab Rebecca even after being interrupted, which showed a determination to kill, but he didn't deliberately prolong her death or take actions to increase the pain. They actually claimed, and I quote, "The killing cannot be seen as particularly cruel," which, I mean, 40 stab wounds though, I'm sorry, but I just really disagree with this. Anyway, Becky's funeral was held in her hometown in Scotland on the 6th of January. Her family asked the people who attended the funeral to wear Becky's favorite color, purple, or animal print in her honor. But that's all that I have for this disgusting case that probably angers a lot of people. I personally believe that she was trying to leave him. I mean, she had talked about it with her friends, and we all know that the most dangerous time for a woman in an abusive relationship is when she's trying to leave the situation. He probably just could not handle the lack of control in this situation and ended up killing her. This is something that happens way too often, and it's something that people should be aware of when entering relationships. The sooner you leave the abusive situation, the better. Anyway, my heart goes out to Becky's family. I truly have a special place in my heart for people losing their lives due to domestic violence, and I truly hope from the bottom of my heart that Becky's family have found some kind of peace today. Before I go, I also want to say that I'm gonna try to post more regularly this year. I know that the end of last year was not that good when it came to posting, but don't worry, I'm gonna try to get back to posting normally. Thank you so much for watching today, and welcome to all of my new subscribers. I'm so happy to see you here on my channel, and I'm really thankful for all of the positive comments that I've been getting. I hope that you all have a beautiful rest of 2024, and I hope that I will see you in my next case. Goodbye, everyone.